He walked into the Golden Palace surrounded by royalty and power, and when his eyes fell upon two ordinary women, a maid and a gardener, he shocked the entire room by offering $1 million for them. Laughter filled the hall. Whispers spread. "Why them?" they asked. But what no one knew, not even the billionaire himself, was that these two women were about to change everything, not because of beauty, money, or charm, but because of something far more powerful, something no one in that palace had ever seen before. Real strength, real love, real courage. And soon the billionaire would realize he hadn't bought them. They had saved him. Before we continue with this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video, because when you stop doing this, YouTube understands that you don't like this content and stops recommending good stories like this. Oh, and don't forget to comment below where you're watching us from. We love to know that. Rosa and Camilla, anonymous maids in a 5-star Dubai hotel, were abruptly redirected. Instead of the usual linen closet, stern-faced men in dark suits guided them through hushed corridors. They exchanged bewildered glances, their cleaning cart forgotten. The ornate doors that opened revealed a scene far removed from their daily routine. Arab men in traditional white thobes sat around small tables in a vast, opulent hall. The air hummed with a tense silence. Suddenly, all eyes turned to a man at the center, a sheikh in a pristine white kandura and striking red headscarf. He held up a large sign displaying 1,000 USD. Rosa and Camilla shrunk back, clutching their cleaning supplies, utterly lost. Before they could speak, a firm hand each on their backs propelled them forward. Confusion morphed into fear as they were presented to the sheikh. He gestured towards them with a nod. A transaction seemingly concluded without a single word exchanged between them. Resistance was futile. They were ushered out of the hall, the $1 million sign, the last bewildering image they saw. A fleet of luxury vehicles awaited. Rosa and Camilla were separated and guided into plush interiors, the scent of expensive leather filling their nostrils. Panic tightened its grip. The city lights blurred as the cars sped through the night. Soon the towering skyscrapers gave way to sprawling, illuminated grounds. They had arrived at a palace. This palace, with its intricate architecture and imposing gates, felt like another world. Rosa and Camilla were led through grand chambers, their footsteps echoing on marble floors. They were no longer Rosa and Camilla, the hotel maids. They were now part of something unknown, something terrifying, initiated by a silent bid and $1 million. The weight of their unknown fate settled heavily upon them as they were led deeper into the labyrinthine palace. The first night in the palace passed in a haze of fear and bewilderment. Rosa and Camilla found themselves in a lavishly decorated suite with silk sheets and gold-rimmed furniture that felt more like a prison than a sanctuary. They spoke in hushed tones, their cleaning uniforms a stark contrast to the opulent surroundings. Their brief, shared history as hotel maids felt like a distant, simpler life. They were two women who had been invisible for so long, and now, for a reason they couldn't fathom, they were the center of a very expensive, very confusing mistake. The morning brought no clarity, only the arrival of Sheikh Malik al-Rashid himself. He entered the room with an air of absolute authority, flanked by silent guards. His gaze was sharp, dissecting them. Rosa instinctively took a half-step back, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her uniform. Camilla, ever the pragmatist, stood her ground, her mind racing for a way to explain the colossal error. "You will not speak until you are spoken to." The sheikh's voice was calm, yet it carried the weight of a decree. "I am a man who has built an empire on seeing value where others see none. Your presence at the auction was not an accident. I do not make mistakes. Sir, with all due respect, it was. We were meant to be cleaning the kitchen wing. There was a mix-up with the schedules. We are not what you think." "That is precisely what I expect you to say. It is the perfect story to hide a valuable secret." I have studied your movements. You, Rosa, with your quiet efficiency. You can spot a single speck of dust in a room of 1,000. And you, Camilla, with your hands hardened by the earth, you seem to have a deep connection to growth, to what is hidden beneath the surface. He walked past them, his footsteps silent on the thick carpet. These are not the attributes of ordinary maids. She couldn't understand. Her efficiency was just a matter of keeping her job. Her silence was a result of a shy nature. She had never been anything more than a maid. The Sheikh's words felt like a bizarre, twisted fiction. The pressure of his expectations was far more terrifying than any dust-filled corner. Camilla, meanwhile, felt a flicker of defiance. We are exactly who we say we are. There is no secret. We are invisible people from the hotel. We cleaned rooms. We tended to the gardens. The auction. It was for something else, someone else. You bid on us by mistake. A man of my wealth and standing does not make a mistake of $1 million. What you perceive as a mistake is merely an investment in an asset whose value is not yet clear. Your defiance, your simple answers, it is all part of your mystique. Your invisibility is your greatest asset. It has allowed you to move unseen, to observe, to learn things that others cannot. The value of that is immeasurable. He saw a master of observation in Rosa, a keeper of secrets from the endless parade of hotel guests. He saw in Camilla a deep, innate knowledge of life and growth, a woman who could make things flourish in the harshest of environments. Their maid and gardener uniforms were not a symbol of their low status, but a clever disguise, a part of a larger plan. The more they protested, the more convinced he became. It was a vicious cycle of a powerful man's delusion meeting the powerless reality of two women. Rosa could feel the walls closing in. The reality of their situation was setting in. They weren't going to be sent home. Their protests were not being heard. They were being reinterpreted. The Sheikh was not going to let them go until he had unraveled the mystery he had created in his own mind. He was a man accustomed to getting what he wanted, and right now, what he wanted was to find the hidden value in them. You will remain here, Malik finally declared, stopping in front of them. You will be provided for. You are under my protection now. Consider it a time of observation. A time for me to understand your real value. His voice was final, leaving no room for argument. Do not worry, I will not admit my mistake. I'm a man of my word. The guards remained outside the door, their presence a silent, undeniable confirmation of the Sheikh's decree. Rosa and Camilla were no longer just lost. They were now valuable prisoners, trapped by $1 million delusion and a Sheikh's refusal to admit he was wrong. They were the valuable invisibles, and their new life in the palace had just begun. The chaos of the nursery was a stark contrast to the quiet, dignified hallways of the palace. The Sheikh's twin sons, no older than 4, screamed in unison, their small faces red and tear-streaked. For months, their nights had been a relentless cycle of wailing and exhaustion, a mystery no doctor or nanny could solve. Out of desperation, a nervous aide brought Rosa to the nursery. Her quiet, observant nature had been noted. She stood at the door, a simple maid in her uniform, watching the frantic efforts of the staff. She said nothing, she simply moved forward. Rosa did not have a secret talent for calming children. She simply had empathy, a well of compassion born from a life of quiet observation. She ignored the shrieking, sat on the floor, and began to hum a simple rhythmic tune from her childhood. She didn't look at the twins directly. Instead, she focused on a small, colorful mobile above them. The room, which had been filled with frustrated tension, began to fill with the soft melody. The twins at first continued to cry, but the rhythm of her humming cut through the noise. They quieted, their small heads turning to the source of the unexpected sound. Within minutes, their whimpering subsided, replaced by the deep, even breaths of sleep. Meanwhile, Camilla was in the ancestral garden, a sprawling, once magnificent space that had fallen into disrepair. The previous gardeners, trained in aesthetics but not in life, had allowed a quiet decay to set in. The sheikh, in his pride, had insisted she be given free rein, believing her hidden talent was tied to the earth itself. What she had was not magic, but knowledge. She ran her dirt-stained fingers through the soil, feeling its lack of nutrients, its desperate thirst. She saw the struggling, faded leaves of a rare desert rose, a plant that had been a part of the Al-Rashid family for centuries and was now on the brink of extinction. Camilla began her work. She did not order expensive fertilizers or exotic new tools. She spoke to the groundsmen in their own language, earning their respect not with her title, but with her expertise. She showed them how to enrich the soil naturally, how to carefully prune the dead growth, how to provide the right amount of shade. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the garden began to breathe again. The faded colors of the ancestral rose became vibrant. The wilting flowers stood tall, and life returned to a place that had been slowly dying. The Sheikh Malik observed these changes with growing fascination. He had bid on a delusion, on a secret he believed they possessed. But their value was not hidden. It was simple, profound, and deeply human. Rosa's empathy had given his sons their first peaceful sleep in months, and Camilla's knowledge had resurrected a piece of his family's soul. The women were not just assets, they were a balm to his home. But his court did not see it this way. The whispers began subtly at first, then grew bolder. "He paid $1 million for a wet nurse and a gardener," an elder advisor sneered over dinner. "A fool's investment." His vanity has finally shown its price. The ridicule stung Malik's pride, a pride that was now shifting. The initial embarrassment of his mistake was fading, replaced by a fierce, protective feeling for the two women. The court saw a $1 million blunder. Malik was beginning to see the things that money could never truly buy. He watched Rosa as she sang to his sons, her voice a soft, gentle current in the grand nursery. The peace she brought to his children was a peace he had not known in years. He saw Camilla, hands still stained with soil, talking animatedly with the head gardener, pointing out new shoots and discussing the future of the rose. She was bringing life back to a place he had assumed was lost forever. These were not hidden talents. They were skills, born of experience and compassion, that had been deemed worthless by the world outside. The court continued to mock him. Their insults, however, now sounded hollow. They could not understand the deep-seated peace that now filled his home. They could not understand the joy of seeing his sons sleep soundly, or the pride of watching the ancestral rose bloom again. These were things that his vast wealth could not procure. His $1 million had not bought him 2 skilled servants. It had brought 2 compassionate, invaluable individuals into his life. By the end of the month, Rosa was not just a maid. She was the only one who could truly calm the twins. Camilla was no longer just a gardener. She was the heart of the ancestral grounds. The 2 women had become indispensable, their unique contributions weaving themselves into the very fabric of the household. The court's mockery no longer mattered. Malik looked at them not with the calculating eye of an investor, but with a new sense of admiration and respect. He had paid $1 million for them, but the value they brought to his family was 1,000,000 times more. The formal gala was a sea of jewels and hushed conversation, the air thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the unspoken language of power. Rosa and Camilla, dressed in simple yet elegant gowns provided by the palace staff, felt like intruders. They clung to the edges of the room, their anxiety a tangible presence amidst the polished smiles of the elite. The Sheikh, Malik, was busy entertaining a powerful dignitary, his back to them, oblivious to the drama unfolding in his own household. His sister, Layla, however, had noticed them. Her eyes, cold and sharp, held a clear disdain. She saw this as her opportunity to expose her brother's foolishness. With a graceful, calculated movement, Layla glided towards them. She wore a smile that didn't reach her eyes, a predator's smile. "My dear, you look very new to all this," she said to Rosa, her voice dripping with condescension. "One can tell the difference, can't one? No matter how you dress them, the dust of their old lives never truly washes off." She spoke just loud enough for the small circle of guests to hear, drawing their attention. A few nervous titters rippled through the crowd. Layla's gaze then fell on Camilla. "And you, with your calloused hands. Tell me, has my brother's $1 million investment started to pay dividends yet? Or are you still just a simple gardener?" Malik's absence was a chasm, a space where his sister could freely strike. Layla leaned in, her voice now a low, cruel whisper that carried across the hushed assembly. "I'll tell you all what he did. My brother, the great Malik al-Rashid, paid $1 million at an auction for 2 lowly hotel servants, a maid and a gardener. Can you believe it?" She let out a short, hollow laugh. The laughter of the crowd, at first hesitant, grew into a ripple of open mockery. Rosa and Camilla felt their faces burn with shame. They were once again invisible, but this time it was a public, painful invisibility. But then a different voice cut through the ridicule, high-pitched and clear. "She's not a maid!" They ran to Rosa, clinging to her dress, their small faces a mask of indignation. "She's Rosa! She sings to us!" one of them exclaimed. "She's our friend," the other added, looking Layla straight in the eye. The laughter died instantly. The sight of the Sheikh's own children defending a maid with such genuine affection was a powerful, unexpected blow. It was an innocence that no amount of money or social status could buy. The silence in the room was now different. It was a silence of stunned introspection, not of ridicule. At the same moment, another voice rose above the murmurs, this one seasoned with authority and respect. A renowned international investor, Madame Leclerc, known for her sharp business acumen and her love of rare flora, stepped forward. She had been speaking with the head gardener earlier, her eyes on the ancestral rose in the palace grounds. She approached Camilla, her expression one of deep admiration. "Pardon my interruption," Madame Leclerc said, her voice firm. "But this young woman is no simple gardener. I have been trying to acquire one of the Al-Rashid ancestral roses for a decade, and every attempt has failed. I was told the line was nearly extinct, and yet this morning I saw the rose in full bloom, more vibrant and alive than I've ever seen it. Only a master botanist with an innate understanding of life could have achieved such a thing. Your brother didn't make a foolish investment. He found a talent that money can't buy. A talent that has preserved a priceless part of his family's heritage." Layla's face, once triumphant, now paled with shock and fury. The crowd, which had moments before been laughing, now looked at Rosa and Camilla with a newfound respect. The humiliation was not theirs, it was Layla's. They were not just a maid and a gardener, they were a trusted confidant to the Sheikh's children and a world-class botanist in the eyes of a powerful investor. Malik, having finally been alerted to the commotion, saw the scene unfold. His sons were clinging to Rosa. The most influential investor at the event was praising Camilla. His sister stood, defeated and humiliated. The public mockery he had dreaded had not come to pass. Instead, the true value of Rosa and Camilla had been publicly and powerfully validated. He walked over to them, not as their owner but as their defender. He put a hand on each of their shoulders, a silent gesture of pride and protection. The public humiliation had failed spectacularly. It was not a moment of shame, but a moment of profound vindication. The elite no longer saw a fool's mistake. They saw a man who, against all odds, had found true value where no one else was looking. The silence in Malik's private study was a stark contrast to the clamor of the gala. The opulent room felt small, intimate. Rosa and Camilla stood before him, the echoes of the public humiliation and subsequent vindication still fresh in their minds. Malik was no longer the arrogant sheikh of the auction, nor the protective figure of the garden. He was simply a man, his face a complex tapestry of pride and vulnerability. He gestured for them to sit, his movements slow and deliberate. A heavy folder lay on the mahogany desk between them, an artifact of their transactional beginning. Malik began to speak, his voice low. "Tonight, my sister tried to use your past to humiliate me. She failed. She did not understand what I saw in you from the beginning. To her, you were a mistake. To me, you were an echo of a life I had almost forgotten." He paused, his gaze distant, lost in memory. "My own mother. She was a woman of noble blood, but she was never a mother to me. My mother was a woman in a simple dress, who spoke with a gentle voice and smelled of jasmine and warm bread. She was a servant, a member of my household staff, chosen to care for me as an infant. My real mother was a distant figure of duty and state. My other mother, she was my world. I called her Amira, my princess, in secret. She taught me kindness, compassion. She taught me that the truest value of a person is in their heart, not their title. Her death left a chasm in his soul. He learned to rule, to negotiate, to deal with people who saw him only as a means to an end. The simple, honest love he had known in his childhood faded into a memory. He began to believe that the world of simple, good people was a myth, a fairy tale told to boys by their caregivers. He became hard, cynical, and calculating. He lost his faith in the power of a simple, good heart. "Then I saw you," he continued, his eyes now fixed on them. "I saw two women who were invisible, who were undervalued. You reminded me of her. My mind, trained in business, saw an opportunity. I convinced myself that you must have a hidden talent, a secret value that would justify my investment. I didn't want to admit to myself that what I was truly looking for was that simple, honest worth I had lost. Rosa, when you sang to my sons, you didn't just give them sleep. You gave them a piece of the love and peace I once knew. You showed me that empathy, a quiet kindness, is a more powerful force than any army. And Camilla, when you breathed life back into that ancestral rose, you didn't just save a plant, you brought life back to a part of my heritage, a part of my family's soul that had been withering. You showed me that a passion for life is a more valuable currency than any gold. It was the original bill of sale from the auction. The number, 1,000 USD, was scrawled at the bottom. He tore the paper in half, then in quarters, then into small, ragged shreds. The gesture was a powerful, final act. "That contract is meaningless," he declared. "No amount of money can buy what you have brought to this home. You have brought love to my children, peace to my heart, and life to my garden. You have shown me that the faith I lost in simple people was a fool's mistake. It was a failure of my own to look beyond what I could see. My court sees an error of $1 million. I see the greatest truth I have ever bought. So now the decision is yours. This is not a transaction. This is not a command. You are no longer under any obligation to me. I propose that you stay, not as servants, not as my investments, but as a part of this family. You will be free. You will be respected. You will have a home here by your own choice. I cannot command you to stay. I can only hope that you will." The sheikh's secret had been revealed. The contract was in pieces, and now the future was entirely in their hands. They stood at a crossroads, no longer invisible, no longer bound by $1 million delusion, but invited to a new life with the weight of a powerful and now vulnerable man's deepest hope resting on their choice. Rosa's decision to stay felt less like a choice and more like the inevitable conclusion of a journey. The twins, no longer just a source of her comfort, were now her primary responsibility. She embraced the role of governess with a quiet grace. Her days were no longer a cycle of cleaning and anonymity, but a tapestry of laughter, stories, and the pure, uncomplicated love of two small boys who had found peace in her presence. The palace, once a gilded prison, had become a home. Camilla, too, had made her decision. The gardens, once a symbol of her forced isolation, were now her kingdom. She walked the paths with the confidence of a ruler, her hands, once worn from a thankless task, now moved with purpose and authority. She commanded the staff with a respectful firmness, her knowledge of the ancestral plants earning her a deference that no amount of wealth could buy. She was no longer just a gardener. She was the guardian of the palace's living history, a title that held more weight than any position in court. To make their new reality official, the sheikh organized a small private ceremony. It was not for the public or the press, but for the court, the very people who had once mocked him. Malik stood before them, his gaze falling first on Rosa and Camilla, then on his sons who clung to her side. His voice, which had once been a tool for command, now carried the honest weight of a man sharing his heart. "You all saw a mistake. You saw a man bid on $1 million delusion," he began, his voice clear and unwavering, "and for a time, so did I. But Rosa and Camilla have taught me a truth no contract could ever define. They have given my sons a love that $1 million cannot buy, and they have brought life to my home that all my wealth could not restore. So today I correct my mistake. I did not buy them, I found them, and in doing so I have not just added to my palace staff, I have added to my family. Today, before all of you, I officially recognize Rosa and Camilla not as servants, not as employees, but as members of my family of soul. Their worth is not in what they do, but in who they are. They are a part of us." The court, which had once laughed, now looked upon Rosa and Camilla with a newfound silent admiration. The only person who did not share in this quiet celebration was Layla. Humiliated by the turn of events, and a brother who had chosen a soul family over a blood family, she made her final dramatic exit. She packed her bags and left the palace, a defeated queen abandoning a kingdom she no longer understood. Her departure was a quiet victory for the new order, a symbol of the old ways giving way to a new kind of power. As the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold, a sense of peace settled over the palace. The final scene was a quiet confirmation of all that had changed. Inside, in a room filled with the warm light of a lamp, Rosa sat on a plush carpet, the twins nestled close beside her. She was reading from a large, illustrated book, her voice a soft, rhythmic melody. The boys listened intently, their exhaustion a thing of the past, their peace a tangible presence in the room. Outside, in the revived ancestral garden, Camilla smiled. She held a simple watering can, carefully tending to the vibrant leaves of a rare flower. The golden light of the setting sun caught in the droplets of water, creating 1,000 small rainbows. She was no longer a lost maid or a prisoner of a delusion. She was home, a master of her craft, a cherished member of a family she had never known she needed. Her smile was a peaceful, quiet triumph, the perfect ending to a story that began with a silent auction and ended with a new, beautiful life. For more stories that matter, join our community. Subscribe to Jabot's Stories.